Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tharsis. This time we've unlocked the commander, so we will be pairing him up with the psychologist, mechanic, captain, and the captain. Apologies, I sort of lost my thoughts for a second there and was thinking, we've got 4 people, but I only mentioned 3 and then I immediately forgot that we basically had our commander. So the commander's special ability is that with any 1 dice, he can attribute 4 repair to a module. So with that in mind, I actually thought, maybe I should use the psychologist like last time and have him just sort of deal with the stress, because I can't quite remember my exact thoughts at the time, but it was sort of like just feeling unleashed in that kind of regard. So here we've got the psychologist dealing with the meteorite strike damage in the life support module, and which is interestingly enough, none of the current damage modules actually have any hull damage attributed to them. So one of them is -1 help all, which is definitely much more pressing, and the other with -1 through, which is not as bad in sort of like further down in the next, I suppose in some of the later weeks, but definitely a problem right now since we normally start with 1 through, which is definitely essential to getting one of our crew up and running. So we've got a couple of people committing to the life support module, and with a triple stasis, it's certainly not the best condition to be in, since we can't just apply all 3 dice to completely repair the module, so 1 goes into research, and unfortunately we are unable to give our fellow crew members a dice each for the following week. So with the commander with only 1 dice, we have to end up sacrificing our single piece of food. Putting the commander in with everyone else makes the most sense, and with luckily roll 2 allowing us to give our commander some additional dice for the following week. But the main point I want to make is that with the captain, it basically means that we can start with the captain, which basically means 1 additional dice for everyone else in the following round. So that's as long as we have a module that we can easily move to, and just with our luck, we certainly have an appropriate module. So the first I ended up rolling with the psychologist, mainly because there is a single injury dice, so rolling with the captain would have been a bit risky. Nevertheless, we were able to complete this repair module completely with the psychologist and reduce the stress of everyone, which is definitely a significant bonus. So rolling with the captain next. I don't quite remember if I ended up moving him to operations or I kept him here, but definitely there is some advantage to both. Certainly when you consider the fact that that the operations module has 1 damage dice as well, which basically means that it's gonna be a bit of a problem with the captain, with the risk of, accidentally killing him on an extremely unlucky roll. So that kind of made sense. And the other thing to consider is that we've got enough ship power to withstand the damage, so if all goes wrong, then we are not completely screwed, and basically, we just need a couple of lucky dice rolls just to really get back up to speed. But nevertheless, with another double status, using one for repair, and hopefully we roll in the additional run and the additional 1. My apologies. And unfortunately a 4, which basically means that we wanted to avoid these guys going to waste. Using the anti-hemorrhages or just putting them all into repair is probably the best option. That said, putting the 4 into repair makes the most sense, since 4 is higher than the average you would get out of a single dice roll, and then putting the 3 into research make the most sense there. So, in terms of just keeping a general balance amongst other things, so with 2 6s, our mechanic Pacal is able to completely repair this module and attribute some additional dice to research. Nevertheless, the stasis dice are really not quite friendly with it. Nevertheless, stasis has not been quite friendly, and I just find myself rolling, sort of just reshuffling our research just to hope to get something a little bit better. Although at 6 dice for a prevent injury is still quite a difficult decision and research project to take/make, because it's usually not that easy to get all 6 dice into research, and then at the same time when you've got 6 dice, is feels like could be better spent on other things. So one of the things that sort of just comes to mind is the question of how many injury dice overall do you need to have to make using a 6 dice prevent injury worth it? So, but that's definitely something to think about for later. A rather unlucky first roll by Niki, which is thankfully alleviated by our second roll, although it is not quite enough to completely repair this module, which is definitely definitely a contentious point. I really like that word contentious. I should probably look that out what it means. I have a tendency to use words without knowing what that means. So in deciding to attribute that final dice to the repair module instead of using the quick patch, it's it could have gone either way, to be honest, but I guess the main thinking is that as long as you make it easier for the next person, it just means the next person has a better chance of using ideally the more useful skill towards, like say with the captain, his more useful skill in giving 1 dice to himself and any other people in the same module. Unfortunately, the captain did not roll another 5 or 6, which means he wouldn't have been able to heal himself or contribute a useful dice to research. So we're just gonna repair the greenhouse because we may as well avoid damage while we're there, and with plenty of ship hull, we can probably take the damage for a bit. Another unlucky first roll, followed by a single void, which basically means our greenhouse will not get repaired just as yet, which is certainly a bit worrying, certainly not the best luck we're having at the moment, but nevertheless, we're still holding on and not doing too badly. Unluckily, John did not roll 6, which would have made life much easier, but instead of re-rolling, I think it's better to play it safe and just take whatever advantage we can in mostly sort of just cutting our losses, really. So in reshuffling our research for pretty much just because I feel like the amphetamines to reduce the injury is really not all that useful, it made more sense to re-roll the research in that sense. So it's 7 weeks to Mars, and the great thing about keeping stress low is that the decisions are not as what's the best way to say it? Not as can't remember the right word. It's like getting the advantage, but the drawbacks are much more drastic. So here in the greenhouse we've got a 33 repair module, which is definitely not being helped very well by this slightly not as great dice roll, but thankfully with a 6 and a 5 and being able to put the 1 into the commander's into the commander's unique skill, we've certainly managed to get rid of a fair amount. So with 3 people in the greenhouse module, putting the captain in seems to be the next obvious choice, in that we are able to give everyone an additional dice for the following week. 2 not as great rolls, which it's certainly a bit disappointing, but nevertheless, it's something we can sort of just work with for the time being. Luckily, we need only repair one module in order for our ship to survive this following week. And here you can sort of just see me thinking over, should I use the energy boost or the choice harvest? And the choice harvest is the more obvious option, mainly because it's food we can store away for another week, and especially when we have a module that does not reduce the amount of food that we have, it means our food is good for either next week or even the following week. So it's kind of a long-term thinking in that sense. John is now taken his turn with a 5 and 2 3s, not quite enough, and certainly a bit of a stretch to hope that we would be able to completely repair this module. And my luck does not really give way so much, and but thankfully that final dice will not go to waste, in that we are able to have an appropriate research to use up the dice that we have currently banked up. Certainly with everyone just sort of all attempting to repair the greenhouse with not much luck, things do certainly seem a little stressful, really. But another not so great first roll with a 3, and here I decided to roll the dice instead of opting for more food, and with a double 6 we can at least gain 1 ship HP and a very, very useful dice for research. Nevertheless, with 3 modules that require repairing, 1 which does not really actually need attention so much. The one at the end, which I don't remember the name, but The one with the system fail with the BSOD, which stands for Blue Screen of Death, which if you didn't already know, since that does not have any negative effect when a week passes, we can definitely leave that alone for later, but we would definitely want to repair it, especially if we want some additional assistance in getting ship hull. So CCC leaking the greenhouse with a triple 1 injury, certainly not a very safe place to be if were it not for the 2 assists we have already. So John's gonna give it a go, and thankfully we don't roll any 1s, but 3 6s and 2 5s, which allow us to completely repair that module in one roll, reduce everyone's stress, and contribute a very useful dice to research. So, moving on, we can, the system fail in the life support module maybe does not need as much attention, but at the same time, that being there means that anyone passing through will end up taking damage, so it can be a bit of a tricky decision as to who should go where and why. So, we're putting the commander up in the laboratory. I think I might have called it the operations module before. Again, a not so lucky first roll, but the second roll was just quite enough for Niki to completely repair that module, and taking 1 damage in the process, but thankfully everyone is pretty much topped up in terms of HP, so there's really not much to worry about in terms of moving around. I found that sort of movement damage is not as significant as I thought it would be, mostly if you're good at handling things. Oh, that's some really bad damage taken by Pacal, but hopefully he should be able to repair this module completely. Nevertheless, I thought we should probably play it safe by taking 1 assist, and thankfully there we go with enough dice, which what did I do? Okay, that's interesting. I guess it's because getting 1 additional ship ensures that the whole ship isn't completely destroyed. And whilst we could have also repaired the same module completely for the same thing, but it figures that we may as well take advantage of putting another person in there and hopefully getting some kind of benefit from their special ability. So like with Jing gives himself and Pacal an additional dice, and as such, we also use our research to give everyone some an extra health for the following week, just to keep on top of things. I will say that sort of the research is definitely being our research options have definitely been fairly lucky with fairly minimal rerolling, so that's definitely a key factor in our doing fairly well in this run. So here with 5 weeks to Mars, I figured since we've been keeping everyone's stress low, we can actually afford to resort to cannibalism at some stage, mainly because the cannibalism will basically not push everyone to maximum stress, and since we have the Psychologist, if we have the wow, that is not a great roll by Jean. We'll just keep the 4 and roll everything again, hopefully for some better rolls, and with a 5 and a 6, which is definitely our most optimal and our most efficient dice combination, but that leaves us with 3 4s, which is not as great because then we can't exactly use them for anything else, so it makes more sense to put 2 4s into repair and use the 5 for giving the captain and Pacal an additional dice, and that's definitely a much more effective usage of resources. Thankfully, Jean was able to repair the module completely, so if all goes well, we may be able to we can repair much more different modules. I think one of the things that's really interesting is that even though you can have so many dice, or even like 5 dice on one person and 2 dice on another, you still have to think about the fact that it's all like the dice is all tied to one character. So even like say if you have one person with 5 dice, if everyone else has only like 1 dice, then you will still struggle a lot than if you had like say 3 dice across everyone. So it's sort of just that balance of dice, which is really interesting to think about, and sort of just think, okay, how should I distribute the dice through the cannibalism and just to ensure that we have a chance of repairing certain modules in the next round. Because one of the things that's easy to notice is that the randomized damage that comes with the modules being damaged, and also just thinking about how many dice you need just to deal with them. So I guess one way you can think about it is in terms of averages. So like if you've got, so like I said before, the average of a single dice roll is 3.5. I'm pretty sure, yes, it's 3.5. So if you think, okay, well, if it's got one dice, then on average we can expect to repair 3.5 points of damage. And then when you have 5 dice, you can multiply that by 5. So 3.5, 7, 14, 17.5 points of damage. 17.5 repair. Maths. So that's definitely one thing you can sort of take in a very theoretical sense into consideration when you're dealing with this kind of thing. So it's 4 weeks to Mars. Choosing 1 through is really not all that great because everyone's fairly topped out on dice, so choosing stress reduction is probably the better option. 30 damage with a hull breach in the pilot cockpit or the flight station, whatever it's called. Definitely a little bit worrying, as it won't be repaired that easily, because even with 5 dice, you basically need 6. You basically need to roll 6 on all of them to have a chance for one person to completely repair it. So it's definitely something that requires more than one person on average. Maybe even 3 people if you're not that lucky. But maybe I should be thinking in terms of number of dice. I'll think about that later. So with John aiming for the life support module, John has enough dice to roll to completely repair 10 points of damage, but the question becomes, can it have been more efficient? If I roll 2 5s, I only need to use 2 dice, whereas right now I will end up using 3, which is certainly not very ideal. But luckily, I was at a point where I realized that I could feel like I could max out my research and actually use the disaster reduce to actually completely repair 1 component. So with that, I think that was indeed a very lucky roll, even though I was not able to completely repair the life support module. So now that we've got 6 dice for the research, it makes sense to use the disaster module ASAP, so that when we roll with the captain, we minimize the chance of the dice going to waste. And with 4 stasis on 5 dice, is definitely not the best of luck I've been having there. So at least we were able to repair the module completely and avoid some additional ship hull damage, but nevertheless, the double 3s is definitely not all that useful because I don't quite have the research to actually use it up. So that's 1 dice going to waste as a result of stasis. And so next is the mechanic had repairing the, well, presumably the greenhouse, especially if we want to minimize damage, but definitely with the injury dice on the tree is somewhat of a gamble. Not much of a gamble, but definitely one that is worrying enough for me to think, okay, we may as well use the research to repair the module rather than aiming for another dice roll. So that was definitely the much more safer option, and the reroll was just basically to see if we could get through for the following week, because if you could bank through, why not? I think because at this stage, from memory, I think we've have 1 piece of human meat left, which basically means that we won't have much we don't have much in the way of additional resources just to fill up our crew members' dice for the following week. So there's just Niki left for this week, and the question is whether we should move him to repair the module that will cause our ship some damage, or aim for a different module. So with a 5 and 2 2s, let's see, 5 7, no. Not much luck in repairing this, but thankfully we've got the repair module which will allow us to repair this component completely, which will in addition allow us to commit additional dice to gaining more ship HP whenever necessary. So 3 weeks to Mars, and I think this one is a bit of a tricky decision, because you usually want to sort of just avoid avoid losing dice, but all of these are not very good options. So it's kind of the lesser of three evils, really. So in cannibalism, using that last piece of meat just to top up the call a bit more rather than Niki. For the same reason I said earlier, it's better to have everyone on 3 dice rather than have one person on 5 dice and everyone else on like 2 or 1. So yeah, that's kind of an average thing in theory. So this is a bit tricky because we still have that system fail remaining in the middle, in which it would still cost everyone 1 point of damage if they have to pass through it. And you can imagine if we have Pacal travel all the way through, then he'll be taking a fair amount of damage. And with the life support module and the operations module, I'm assuming that's the bottom one, both having 1 injury dice, and with Pacal, John on 2 HP and Niki and Jean on 3 HP, certainly not a very wise decision unless we repair this system failure in the life support module. So it made the most sense to go for that first, although it's worth pointing out that Niki's kind of quite stuck in his own area. So having John in the life support module, thankfully it's just 4 points of repair which we need. We can't really put his ability to use at the moment since it's sort of like what's the best way to think of it? It's like stress is not the most crucial module because it's not like if everyone is stressed out, you lose the game. But it's like saying in the ship, for example, if you lose all HP of the ship, then you lose the game. But stress is definitely a very important factor to sort of just be aware of and to manage whenever you can, because if everyone is stressed out, then basically it's another snowball effect. So here I'm sort of just wondering, probably move Pacal down there, but he's got 2 HP. We've got 4 dice. We have a very unlucky roll, which happily is not the case. So instead of rolling again, because all the numbers are greater than 3.5, we're able to repair this module completely and get 1 additional ship HP to keep us going for the next round. So moving on, we've got the captain taking 1 point of damage. Thankfully, this is a stasis only zone. That's not the right way to say it, but thankfully there are no injury dice, so we need not worry about such things. So we 3 6s being committed to this. I like to think that we had a bunch of good rolls there basically, and by putting 3 into ship repair instead of the actual repair, I guess that was just me thinking maybe we might have a bit more luck, but it's probably safer to put it into repair because it's worth pointing out that this area there's 3 points of ship damage. And I think this was the point where I realized that with the -1 health or in the health module, our captain will actually end up dying this coming week. So, nevertheless, Niki is able to repair this component completely, and that's the one good thing about his ability. If you get a 1 or 2 that's stuck on stasis, you can just immediately put that into repair and be done with that. So you've got me trying to decide how to properly use the 6 in research, and here this is me struck with the realization again that my captain would be dying and that I should have used the anti-hemorrhagic earlier. So you can see me just thinking, oh my god, what's happening? Why is this happening? And not wanting to put the 6 to waste, I decided to get additional assists, because then we will have at least 3 assists for the following week. So with the damage, our captain, Jean, you've been a good man. And I figured that since we were so close, this was actually something we could try and push through, because the captain dying means that we got more meat to cannibalize. Just the tough decisions that you kind of have to make in these kind of situations. But thankfully we got an MCC override, which would definitely help us out once we contribute a few more dice to research. And so with Niki dealing with the power fail, there's probably I'm just asking myself whether that's the best first option to make, mainly because with 3 assists we definitely want to save some for dealing with the 25 damage in the life support module. So with triple ones, it would be I'm just thinking. Well, with triple ones, it wasn't too. Well, actually, the second roll actually just basically was the best, one of the best possible rolls we could have, because basically we just wanted to avoid the damage still being there to cause damage to the ship. So the ship is safe for at least up until the final weeks. So the question is now, how do we deal with the rest? So I decided with 3 assists, we could probably take a risky roll with the Psychologist and just hope that we can repair this module on the first roll, which we can. And you can see me sort of just not doing anything while I'm probably figuring out how to completely repair this module. So with 3 dice, I think that's a fairly good roll, and we get a 4 instead of a 3, which definitely better for research, since like I said before, the higher numbers you're more likely to put into actual repair than to actually than for actual. I can't remember. So Pacal using up 1 assist, which is great, and but otherwise we don't really have too much to worry about. With 2 assists and 2 dices, he may use up both, but he definitely won't die this time around. So taking advantage of the life support module, not being completely destroyed, such that we can get Pacal to get 1 additional dice for the next round. Definitely probably the better choice. So, alright, let's see. We're taking a look at the ship, and we're just thinking, what do we do? We've got 2 people on 1 HP, and I think I opted to take the additional ship HP. Yes, that's right, because it's the final week. We may as well just feed everyone, we may as well just get everyone to cannibalize and just try and get at least 1 person to the flight control, because right now Pacal and John cannot travel without dying, so we basically need to sacrifice at least 1 person in order to complete this particular mission and the game successfully. So you can imagine it's a very tough decision right now. One possible option is to get Niki up there first, and hopefully repair the system fail, and the other, and I'm just trying to think what I did here. Okay, so here this makes the most sense because there's no injury dice. So what we can do is that we can repair this module, and or do more research. So you can see me just sort of trying to figure out what to do with the 6, 5, 3, and a 1. Could we repair this completely? Yes, we can, which is great. And putting 1 dice to research. Reducing stress is not entirely necessary unless we are able to Reducing stress is not oh god, I'm stuck for words today. Reducing stress is not important in this final week, since obviously the biggest priority is completing the mission and not reducing the stress. Of course, stress reduction is useful for getting a better score at the end. So you can see me re-rolling the research with Niki and hoping for something good in order to get us through this final week. So you can see me sort of just thinking things through. And I think, yeah, I did re-roll an MCC override. I think this was because, I'm just trying to think what I did here now. Okay, right, okay, so this was me. I was just basically re-rolling the research in order to get the +1 health to all crew from memory, which we, let's see. Yeah, this one, the 3 health kits, +1 health all crew on the very final... On the final reroll, and which the right amount of dice, which basically means we could get Pacal up there to completely, well, not to completely repair this module, but to get him up to the cockpit. So that's really just Pacal on its own, and unfortunately Niki and John have good. Given their lives for the success of this mission. Oh, this sounds so morbid. And, excuse me. But, so this is actually the first time that I've actually completed a mission with 1 person surviving, and what I didn't realize was that there's actually a different ending cutscene, so... Yeah, so it's definitely was a different cutscene. I'm hoping which actually reveals a bit more about the story, but as far as I've seen, it still seems to be fairly elusive. So yeah, well, hopefully, so that sort of just gave me a hint and made me realize that why don't we just try completing it with a different number of people? So that's definitely something we'll find out in the long run. So with 1426, not the best score, but not the worst score either. Could have been worse, especially given that we've only got one person surviving. So I certainly think it was quite a tough run, especially towards the end where we did not have the best luck, nor the best dice rolls in dealing with some of the obstacles. But nevertheless, we were able to complete this one and find a few more interesting things. Unfortunately, I did not meet my goal of completing a run with Commander alive, which was actually my main goal for this kind of run. So definitely the next run coming up will still feature the Commander, and then I will probably go into some challenges like how should I pick a crew without an engineer or without the captain, that sort of thing. So yeah, I look forward to those. And with that, if you enjoyed this content, feel free to like the video and of course subscribe if you want to see more. So with that, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.